Hello, everybody. It's Ed Rosenberg, and we got a special guest along with Chris McCabe today. We have his friend Leah. How are you, Chris? How you doing, Leah? How are you?
Hey
Doing
Ed,
great.
how are
Hello from
you?
Montreal.
Hello from Brooklyn. Okay, so we're gonna talk about the recent blog post you just put up about the fees, the Q4 fees. You want to talk a little bit about that, please?
Yeah,
Is that me?
yeah, that is you. Blog post about it. You'll be sharing that for more detail, but just an overview.
Yeah, so Amazon have more than tripled their storage fees for Q4, specifically November and December, which on the surface seems like really bad news. But they've also reduced their storage fees for the month of October while also reducing their weight handling fees. So basically, what they're telling you to do is to get your shipments in early for Q4 and to only be storing things that you plan on selling in November and December. If it's not going to sell in those months, they don't want it there.
Right. To me, what it seems like what they're doing is they're saying, don't use us as a storage house.
Exactly.
Send in things that you sell through quickly, right? I mean, that's
Right.
identify those things.
If it's in there in
Yeah,
Q4, they want it sold in Q4. They don't want things
right.
sitting there for months and months and months. They don't have the space.
Right.
And
They don't have the space. But what I find interesting is on the one hand, they have these metrics which seem to force you to do FBA because of return dissatisfaction and late shipment rate that suspend very quickly, and they keep forcing you to do FBA. But then when you send stuff, they go, no, 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 don't send too much, right?
right, and they're
Unless you're willing to
actually
pay for it.
right, and they're actually already not letting people send in over a certain amount of specific ASINs. If they decide that they already have enough in the warehouses, that's
Right.
it. They're not accepting more shipments until they go through that inventory. So that's also why I suggest to get your inventory in early. So if your inventory is not in the warehouse by October, you're probably going to run into a lot of delayed processing.
Right. When you say they're trying to encourage people to have better inventory management processes,
Right.
better kinds of automation, organization skills, and to determine on their own, not necessarily letting the marketplace decide what's going to sell and how quickly it's going to sell. Have some idea of what that prospect is versus just
Sending it and hoping for
who
the best.
knows.
Yeah.
We'll sell it as quickly as we can, and we're not sure how quickly that'll be. I mean,
Right. They want you to have a handle of your inventory of what's moving or whatever's not. You can keep to
Right.
yourself.
They don't want you to test unknowns in Q4.
right.
Mhm. Okay, late shipment rate. You had something to say about that. They've been really cracking down on that lately.
Well, it's just that they're much less interested now in reinstating people just however they were selling before after seeing late shipment problems. They're less tolerant of late shipment above 4% anyway. And we used to call it holiday war team. In the holidays, there'd be certain automated suspensions, maybe some manual suspensions for people who were having a spike in late shipment around the holidays. But now people have to be attentive to that year round, to the point where if you've had a previous suspension for that or previous warnings for it, Amazon might only be interested in reinstating you if you're committing to 100% FBA, which some people don't want to do because of the fees. Some people can't do it because they have items that can't be sold FBA, but the bottom line is there's much less tolerance for late shipment in general. So if you're having drop shippers let you down, if you're having people get sick that aren't replaced, I don't know, if you don't have a contingency plan in place, you're running a much higher risk of seeing your entire account go down just for momentary blips in your late shipment. They won't tolerate those as much as maybe a few years ago when I was working on this stuff, when we got reasonable explanations, people were out sick, power outages, natural disasters, whatever. It's just much less of a pain threshold for that now. So
Right. I mean, I think, like sourcing light and safe items just to pad your statistics is a great thing to do.
yeah, I mean, some people are just still doing fulfilled by merchant just because they don't want to pay FBA fees, and they think, well, Amazon's just steering me that way because they can get more fees from me that way. But it also shows a deepening of your connection to the marketplace, your commitment to the principles of the company, right? And their order fulfillment. If you're accepting the fact that they're an expert in order fulfillment and they're going to assume responsibility if something goes wrong, which is a good thing. If your items are late, you don't have to worry about it if FBA is doing it for you. but it's in general, you're deepening your relationship with the company and the marketplace, and it demonstrates that you're sort of graduating to the next level of participation, which is, maybe I'm willing to do 100% FBA and pay the extra. Maybe I'm willing to explore Amazon lending more. It's just another thing that you're doing that makes you closer to the company than perhaps some other sellers who are refusing to pay for those fees.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what I don't like about sometimes sending FBA is you get a few returns, and then you get those automated emails that due to a high rate of negative experience,
Right.
they close the item, and then I got to bring back 500 pieces. It's a fortune.
Yeah. You mean the negative buyer experience, negative customer experience emails?
Yeah, because if it's a merchant fulfilled item and that happens, I just close the listing.
Right.
But if it's FBA, I have everything there. So I spent all the money going there. And I can't even sell it on eBay and drop ship it on Amazon because after 30 days they say they're going to dispose it. So I got to bring it back, and it's expensive.
Problems. I mean, there are logistical downfalls, I guess, or problems associated with it. But I actually look at those. I mean, those emails are kind of beta, being tested still in terms of these negative buyer experiences, right? Because some of those are all comments that indicate the buyer made a mistake, right? They're still just sending those out. And it's up to you to interpret. I think those are opportunities to figure out what items you might have problems with without getting an actual bona fide performance notification. So from my perspective of risk assessment and risk management on any client's account, I think they're kind of doing you a favor by highlighting something that they might not actually punish you for, that might be a problem down the road, gives you a chance to be ahead of the curve and to inspect the inventory more or look at the buyer complaints. They give you some of the wording,
Yeah.
Heads up. It's like an alert. So that negative, can be turned into a positive fairly quickly, because you might be able to pull stuff out of inventory. Sure, there's some cost associated with that, but it might prevent you from getting a warning, a policy violation, anything down the road.
Well, and on the flip side, it protects you from outside market forces. Like there's a postal strike in Canada starting on Wednesday.
Right.
So if you're doing merchant fulfilled, you're now having to look at UPS or FedEx, whereas if you're doing FBA, that's Amazon's problem.
Yeah.
Right.
Since we're in Canada right now,
we're in Canada.
We're hip to all the postal strikes and order fulfillment problems in Canada this week. So.
Can't they just work it out? What's going on with that and with the strike?
Last I heard, it's starting Wednesday. It was supposed to start today, so I guess they're still negotiating. It may or may not.
Right. I mean, these things normally end up working out just based on my unscientific studies,
And what about the EU? They love having strikes over there, right?
Yeah, they have strikes all the time, but not postal strikes. They have more like unions, not necessarily postal. And you mentioned something before about automated suspensions and manual. Is there a way to tell by the email what kind of suspension it was?
So something around Holiday War Team. No, I mean, not always. Holiday War Team was established to kind of, because during peak sales periods, instead of having to wait while investigators were sifting through X number, which was a high number in November, December of investigations, to get to the point where people were suspended for late shipment, they would just, auto suspend people who got above a certain threshold because there was no time to let all these orders be shipped late. And of course, that's a negative buyer experience to have that many sellers shipping late in the holiday period because they were overwhelmed or they were reaching too far for something that they couldn't get in terms of, revenue and trying to capitalize on the holiday peak period. So that's Holiday War Team. I'm just saying the principle of the Holiday War Team seems to be extended to the rest of the year now, which is it kind of doesn't matter what time of year it is. It kind of doesn't matter what your excuse is. We don't want to see late shipment above 4% anymore. It's a hard and fast rule. You might have a good reason. It might be an act of God. It could be a lot of things, but they don't want to see late shipments over 4%. If they see you're not doing 100% FBA, of course, their knee-jerk reaction is, well, maybe this wouldn't have happened if you weren't doing 100% FBA. So that's going to be your terms of reinstatement at that point.
How about invalid tracking? Have you seen people get suspended for invalid tracking?
I haven't, no.
Mm-hmm. That's good to know.
I mean, in terms of invalid tracking, you mean people purposefully putting in bad tracking, or they had a bad feed of some sort when they were loading that information?
Sometimes if you're shipping first class to the post office, it never updates, but it gets there. So that could be
for it. I don't remember the last suspension I worked on just for that. It might have come up in part of a suspension, but I don't remember seeing a notification that was just for invalid tracking. Yeah.
Okay, reviews. You had mentioned to me offline that some people are getting suspended. Then all of a sudden they're saying, "Oh, by the way, you had some reviews. You're gaming the system." You want to talk a little bit?
Yeah. So what I was saying was, just to clarify, I think people are sometimes suspended. We already have the problem where people are suspended for one thing, and then in the process of appealing, sometimes something comes up out of the blue that had nothing to do with what was written in the suspension notification. So there's already a precedent for that. On top of that, now it seems like they may have adjusted their investigation template, let's call it, to include something about, hey, check product reviews before you finish with this investigation. I already know that the product review abuse team was sort of assembled maybe last year, late last year. I'm sure they're having a bit more influence now because we've all heard about how product reviews are attracting more scrutiny anyway. It seems like as part of the investigation of in reviewing someone's appeal or their plan of action, investigators are having some encouragement or being prompted to look and see, by the way, have they had any product review issues the last few months? So the example I was giving you was I had somebody who was suspended for actually late shipment rate, and they sort of accepted the POA that we were working on for that. But at the tail end of that, they said, well, we need some more information about your product reviews, which was maybe 6 months ago. So I found that interesting because how far back are they looking at product review issues? And, it turned out that there was a warning about 6 months ago and nothing else came of it. But guess what? 6 months ago isn't today. Maybe they're paying a lot more attention to it. So that the revised POA plan of action had to include some information addressing what happened 6 months ago with, friends, family, whatever was going on, adding to boosting product reviews positively.
And they wanted to know like what service you use. They wanted to know exactly what you did, or
I've seen some messaging. I don't know how many people are getting that versus other kinds of messaging about product reviews. I've seen people who have been asked to name names of services they're using, also to describe methods that they've been using, maybe some combination of those two. I mean, they're just using suspended accounts as a way of, mining data from people who also had product review abuse problems. So they're trying to figure out who's using what, how often, what else are they up to? Is there a method being used that they haven't seen much of yet that's actually messing with reviews a lot more than they realize? So they're leveraging the suspended account as an opportunity to gather that kind of intel, and it's going to be up to sellers to decide what they want to specify, I suppose. Yeah.
okay, Chris. Anything else? What's hot now in suspensions? What have you seen a lot of?
Well, so yeah, the late shipment ones. You mean in terms of like product quality teams? They're definitely, what I'm seeing lately is people having ASINs restricted and suspended for, they'll give you a reason like inauthentic, and then you provide your invoices, your supply chain documentation or whatever, and then all of a sudden they might turn around and say, oh, well, there's also a complaint, for used sold as new against the same ASIN. And again, that wasn't raised in the first message. So the question becomes, did they suspend that ASIN because they got a second confirmation complaint after you submitted the first email, or was it there all the while and they never intended to reinstate your listing against the ASIN once they saw your invoices? They were waiting to give you kind of another excuse to wait to reinstate you because, the item quality teams are that much stricter now.
Some people have speculated that when it comes to these suspensions, they want you to suffer a certain amount of time. You buy that?
Well, I mean, that's kind of what I've been blogging about for the last, several months, is they need to demonstrate their due diligence, and a lot of investigators don't want to be on the hook for reinstating you too quickly in case you cause some bad debt down the road and you get re-suspended or other problems, and they're on the hook for reinstating you. An audit picks them up, and it's a mark against them. So they have incentive to stall. They also don't have a heck of a lot of time to review detailed, complicated case information. So sometimes it's easier if you write something poorly, or you're unclear, or you're not sure what you want to say. It gives them the excuse to just kick it back, ask you for more information, and quickly move on to the next investigation, right? They have investigations per hour they're being measured on, so they have to be effective. Of course, they can't just do several and make a lot of mistakes, but the easy hedge there is to send an email asking for more information. It covers them. and it forces you to give them more, and it make it look like they made it harder on you to come back.
Right. And just so if anyone is watching who doesn't know yet that Chris used to work for Amazon Seller Performance, and he used to reinstate people, right? Let's focus on the positive. He used to reinstate. I didn't know that. So if you would reinstate someone,
Talk about that for a minute if you want. I mean, I don't mean to interrupt you, but in terms of investigations per hour, that's nothing new. That was there years and years ago. Of course, it steadily increases over time, and the need to be efficient never goes away. It's always, you can't really make big time mistakes with this work, but you have to be able to do it quickly and effectively. So, I mean, there were times that I was probably reviewing things very quickly, and maybe certain kinds of information I was skimming through as opposed to reading every line. If you're an investigator and you read everything very slowly and appreciating every single minute detail, again, depending on what it might be about, you're not going to have many investigations per hour, which is why sellers have to make this information accessible, clear, undisputed, documented, make their jobs as easy as possible. Otherwise, you're giving them the incentive to throw it back to you and ask for more information, which actually might be in your document. But if you made it hard to access, then you're in the pickle of they're asking you for more information. You already gave them everything. What do I say next? Nobody wants to be in that situation. So, yeah. Well, I'm sorry for interrupting you. What were you going to ask?
No, I was going to ask that. Do they actually? That's okay. That happens all the time. Don't worry about it. But what I was going to ask you is that I didn't know that you're actually held responsible for it. They would come back to you.
Subject just from having done it for so long, but yeah, in other words, if I reinstated somebody who wasn't ready for reinstatement, don't forget, if you write a POA with all sorts of wonderful promises in there, but you're not actually doing that stuff, it's just on paper, and then I accept that and you're reinstated, but then you fail on all of those points you just gave me, you get suspended again for the same reason, which makes getting back on that much harder. That was one point I wanted to make. But if I don't have good information from you at all, and I reinstate you, and you go down the tubes, then it's on me at that point, right? You could be a bad debt risk. You could have created tons of bad buyer experiences. And going back to the POA, there might not be anywhere near enough information that you've given me to justify being reinstated, but I might have misread it, not understood, whatever. Maybe I was in too much of a hurry and I might have reinstated you. That would be a mark against me at that point. Auditing is kind of spotty. It's not as, up to snuff as it probably should be, but it's possible. It's worth worrying about from their perspective.
Okay, Chris and Leah, I really appreciate you coming on. That was very informative. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Ed.
And enjoy your rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.
Happy 4th.
You too. Thank you.